Good evening and welcome to A Course in Miracles. Tonight we do Workbook Lesson 169. And tonight's lesson is more of an acknowledgement of faith in our shared being with God, our shared essence. It's a realization and admission to the realization that we are always taken care of. And that when we place our faith in true reality, God's true reality, which is unseen by the world of man, it gives us proof that it is indeed worth putting our faith in. And it becomes a self-perpetuating, and it keeps giving us the proof and keeps advancing us in this faith. And always there's a lesson attached, and the lesson is reinforcing the new, completely upside down way of looking versus the way of we're looking at the world. So it changes the way we perceive ourselves in relationship to our source and to the world we're dreaming up of. And the statement is beautiful, and it is one of those lines that you often hear repeated because it's so powerful. And so the lesson states, by grace I live, by grace I am released. And what does grace mean? What does grace mean? It sounds a wonderful word, God's grace. Is it his forgiveness? No. Is it his love? Yes, but we then have to understand what his love means. Because as we say often in language, I love you, or God loves us, or we love God. Although the intention behind the statement is indeed loving, it is actually incorrect, because it presumes that love is an action, love is a verb, when love is not an action nor a verb, although it produces action. Love is the very essence of what God is. To say the word love and God synonymously is really to say something like free gift. Gift is free. God is love. Love is God. It's the same thing. And thus, if you're made from God's essence, then you are love too. And what the Course says is grace is an aspect, an attribution, an attribute, a quality. Grace is an aspect of love, of the love of God, which is most like the state prevailing in the unity of truth, one indivisible whole truth, one indivisible being, which we have named God. It is the world's most lofty aspiration, like the idea of enlightenment, for it leads beyond the world entirely. And while we abide here in the appearance of form, even our highest conscious enlightened being, in whatever form it's taken throughout eternity, cannot speak of such things, because once it is fully self-realized, no word can be used to describe what I would say that which is. You cannot give it any quality. It is past learning. It's beyond learning. You cannot learn it. Yet the goal of learning, for grace cannot come until the mind prepares itself for true acceptance. And the only way we prepare ourselves for true acceptance is to have nothing to think about anymore. And in order to have nothing to think about anymore, we have to ensure that our forgiveness goals are done so that no attack thoughts intrude on the silent stillness which we abide in as awareness of awareness itself. Grace becomes inevitable, instantly in those who have prepared a table, cleaned a slate, where it can be gently laid and willingly received, which means no longer any more attachments to the world, because it's so completely different to anything the world has to offer. In actual fact, the world has nothing to offer but the appearance of things and places and activities and events. An altar clean and holy for the gift of what grace is, and thus what God is, and thus what you are. It's a mind cleared of all its forgiveness goals is now able to receive. If you had a bowl filled with dirty water, muddy water, and you wanted to have a clean drink, you'd have to completely empty the bowl, rinse it out in clean water, rinse that out again, and then receive the water. So this is what we're having to do. We're having to cleanse the filters of our consciousness so that awareness can become fully all-encompassing as that which we are. And even awareness is so difficult to explain. It's a concept until it's fully absorbed, and then we use concessionary words to try and explain that which is unexplainable. Grace is acceptance of the love of God within a world of seeming hate and fear. It is the acceptance of God's eternal nature as our shared eternal nature. As we dream of something called the world and the universe. By grace alone, the hate and fear are gone. Because hate and fear are equated to shadows, and grace equated to light. And there can be no shadow when there is only light. The only time there's a shadow is if there's an objectified activity or entity from in the way of the light, in which case the light then casts a shadow of the object. But once objectification is gone, and the mind is clear of here, there, now, then, this, that matter, space, time, and is purely aware of awareness as its own essential nature, there can only be the silent stillness or light of awareness. And therefore, any concept, which is the concept of the dreaming mind that fell asleep, forgot what it was, imagined what it could be, imagined what it could create it, and then the idea of fear came into it, and fear became the idea of unworthiness. Must have done something wrong. We must have sinned. Not good enough. Going to be punished. Going to be destroyed. And fear enters. By grace alone, the hate and fear are gone. For grace presents a state so opposite to everything the world contains, that those whose minds are lighted up by the gift of grace cannot believe the world of fear is real. And while they still abide, partaking in the script which they agreed to long before they came into form, while they still appear to abide here, all thoughts of fear are gone. And so when some disastrous activity or resistant activity appears to appear, it no longer drags them, and they immediately bring their mind back to, by grace I live, by grace I am released. I live and move in God alone as God lives and moves in me alone. And although the egoic idea, which is the thinking mind, tries to dissuade us and draw our attention to activities of the dream, the initiate, the observing localization is now transcended the idea of itself as a separate entity and no longer gets captured by these adulterous thoughts of focus on the illusion. It returns to itself silently. And when you do that, you will realize that no matter what circumstance you appear to be put in, there's always a role to play as teacher for God, which means you will somehow, some way demonstrate and thus teach a new way to whoever or whatever appears as a mirror of yourself in front of you. And often that mirror would be an echo of a mirror you once were, an echo of a mirror that you once were searching for the mirror you've become now, the clean mirror you've become now in the awareness you are. So very often when you attain a certain level of conscious awareness, because while you're in the dream, you cannot be fully aware of awareness. You are consciously aware of awareness, because when you fully become aware, awareness itself, there's no more body-mind appearing. And so realize that when you're drawing students to you, those that are here to learn, because everyone's drawn into you either to teach you or for you to teach them, which is a semiotic give and take relationship. Realize that you very often attract people into your space that are going through what you've just gone through, so that you can teach by example. And therefore, grace is not learned. You cannot teach it to you. You cannot teach it to anyone, but you can demonstrate it in your actions. And that's where the doing, not doing comes in, because it's movement in stillness, which the mind cannot comprehend. In the silent stillness, there's a movement, and that movement is called joy. And it's the joy of giving and receiving, for it's the same thing. The final step must go beyond all learning, because what learns? That which tries to remember what it is, because learning is remembering. Grace is not the goal this course aspires to attain or share, but it brings us into the condition. Yet we prepare for grace, and that an open mind, a clean mind, a mind cleansed of its resistance filters, can hear the call, capital C. Where's the call coming from? The voice. The voice, the memory for God, our holy essence, our Holy Spirit, can hear the call to awaken. It is not shut tight against God's voice. It is not shut tight against true reality. It's not fixated on illusion as its reality. It has become aware that there are things it does not know. And all sages get to that point, and you realize they are truly the sage when they get to that place. They realize, I know nothing. It doesn't stop them from sharing. It doesn't stop them from teaching, but they do not try and explain that which is the Tao, God, unconditional love. They'll immediately tell you that it is what it is. It cannot, there's no words to explain ultimate or God's reality while we appear to be in the dream. The closest we get to it is it has become aware that there are things it does not know, and thus it is ready to accept a state completely different from the experience with which it is familiarly at home. So it doesn't question no more. It accepts what is. It's the acceptance of what is appearing in that which is. And therefore, you can't know anything, for nothing is real. Only the I am awareness of self is reality in this dream world. If you took the collective knowledge of everything in this universe, by all things that contain knowledge of the universe, you still would not know your true self. Because the collective knowledge of the universe is still the collective knowledge of nothing. if you put 8 billion Einsteins together or 8 trillion Einsteins together, they still would not know the truth. Point towards it, yes. Glimpses of it, most definitely. But they certainly wouldn't be able to explain it, share it, or pass it on. That's even why even the great Jesus or the Buddha or the Krishnas or the Maharajis could sit in silent stillness, and you could, in their presence, be fully aware of this all-pervading unconditional acceptance of what is love. But no words they shared would be fully understood by minds still clouded by filters of delusion. And so at best, a teacher, the most enlightened one, could only point to the direct path inward. But you would have to undergo the journey, or you would have to appear to undergo the journey yourself, because there is nothing which journeys anyway. And there is no one to learn anything. Because when the separate self discovers the clues to the reality of what is, it will go into panic. It will go into sadness, depression, fear, as many a student has come to in many different religious paths. And then the panic kicks in, because when the ego realizes that if it goes any further, it means its own demise, many a student has pulled the handbrake there, then turned on the course itself. And you see that in the YouTube channels, the course is bad for you and it's dangerous. It takes away all meaning. Of course it does, because this is a meaningless world in which no meaning can be found. The truest teaching is silent, and the highest level of knowledge, true knowledge you will ever attain, is found within that silence, where that which we call grace has made itself known to you as the grace of God. You are. Yes, you are the grace of God. You are the love of God, forever extending as that which is God's essence, God's eternal, indivisible, completely whole and totally perfect essence. We have perhaps appeared to contradict our statement that the revelation of the Father and the Son as one has already been set. Yes, it has. But we have also said that the mind determines when that time will be, as has determined it and has determined it. Yes, because we have to speak in paradoxical rhythms and clues, because the mind, which is trapped in separation, cannot accept atonement at first glance. It does not see it. It cannot comprehend it. It'll be right in front of you, you wouldn't know it. And so we have to speak in paradoxical conundrums every now and again, just to bring you back to a shock effect, that silences the mind. And when the mind is silent, then true knowledge flows. And yet we urge you, those with ears in the heart, listen. We urge you to bear witness to the word of God, to the truth within you, to hasten the experience of truth and speed its advent into every mind, as we do here now, that recognizes truth's effect on you. Demonstrate, don't talk about it. If anyone was to say they are enlightened, first of all, there's no I to be enlightened. Be wary. If anyone says, I know the truth, be wary. I will tell you this for the record, I have the truth for myself. I have discovered the perfect path for myself. I speak only of my separate self. And as many humans there are, or beings sentient in this entire universe, there are paths, because as we split off from our source in myriads of directions, we will return in the same direction we left back to our path. So no two paths are equal. Imagine a ball which gets split and shoots of itself, fractures in all directions. Each particle traveling away from the center is a path away from source. It travels back the exact same path back to the center, where it unites with its source as one. And that source it unites with is a particle in God's mind. That particle is the sun. It's not God. It is a part of God, but it's not God who fell asleep and split himself up into billions of fractures. It's the sun's dreaming mind, our dreaming mind. And therefore, every particle contains the exact same DNA of that particle that expanded and blew up. And therefore, within you is the same DNA as that particle, which is a thought in God's mind. We call that thought the sun. And therefore, the sun is made from the self-same essence as the particle it exists in, that which we call God. And so to come back to the statement, which is such a contradiction in so many people's minds and a topic of huge debate, because we love to predict the future as if there is a future. For the record, you fell asleep and you woke up an instant, a holy instant later. What appears to be taking form is an unforgiven memory in your Holy Son of God's dreaming mind, which is now awakened to itself, but a part of it is still recalling the dream and hasn't forgotten its preposterous stories. And therefore, as each activity forgives itself, that which dreamt them up awakens to the reality that there's nothing to forgive. That's why when eventually you get to the realization that all your practicing of forgiveness just brings you to realize there was nothing to forgive in the first place, because how could you forgive something that was never real? You just dreamt it. The final forgiveness is forgiving yourself for dreaming, and even that dissolves when you realize not even that happened. But the mind fixated with places, people, things, events, space, time, continuum, materiality, that doesn't hold water. There is no water. Even speaking of these things is already symbols twice removed, concessions upon concessions to make that which is palatable to that which isn't, palatable to that which isn't. So we urge you, be, bear witness, be. Bear witness, bear witness. There's enough soapbox preachers and messiahs and so-called holy men. What the world needs is normal in its appearance, being normal and awake to self. Oneness is simply the idea God is. And in his being, he encompasses all things, including you, the entire universe, and that which dreams of you and the universe. No mind holds anything but him, for God is all there is. We say God is, and then we cease to speak, for in that knowledge words are meaningless. The Tao that can be named is not the eternal Tao. There are no lips to speak them, and no part of mind sufficiently distinct to feel that it is now aware of something not itself. Do me a favor just for this experience. Close your eyes, think of nothing. Open your eyes, focus on the screen. That part between what appeared, the nothing, and what appeared, that nothing is your true essence you share with God. No thing, the silent stillness where no thought is there. And isn't that just a beautiful instant where there was no thought, no activity? You've just found it, that moment in between moments. the silence between the notes. The moment where you breathe, you take a breath in order to speak again. There are no lips to speak of them, no part of the mind sufficiently distinct to feel that it is now aware of something else. Listen to that over and over again. It has united with its source, and its source is silent stillness. So how could it be anything but that? And like its source itself, it merely is. How do you explain to someone trapped in materiality, people, places, things, and events, the idea of space, time, history, future? What it is, what it merely is. That those minds trapped in this, those fractured parts of ourselves appearing as minds or bodies in this world, are not ready for that in appearance. In truth, all of us is awake already. All of us is one. We cannot speak nor write nor even think of this at all. Because the minute we think of God, we objectify. And then we have a subject-object experience. And yet, what is the subject that experiences the object? They're both illusions. Experiencing itself as illusions. And yet itself is neither the experiencer, nor the doer, nor the seer. It is that in which all activity, seeing, doing, and being exists. It comes to every mind, every little fractured mind, when total recognition that it is, that its will is, that it is, and that its will is the will God has been completely given and completely received. And yet, because of a memory unforgiven, this still appears to appear. It returns the mind into the endless present. Eternity is always present, where the past and future cannot be conceived. It lies beyond salvation, which is simply the awakening to our essential nature, past all thoughts of time, past all thoughts of forgiveness, and even past the holy face of Christ itself. In Advaita, there's a beautiful way, because the jiva has become knowingly the Atman, and the minute it becomes the Atman, it is Brahman. The body-mind has become the Christ. In that moment of becoming Christhood, Christ itself, it's absorbed instantly into God, and there was no memory of a Christ or a body. There's only God. And that's, of course, even a concessionary explanation of that silent stillness we experienced a moment ago when we stopped to think. Stop thinking, not stop to think, stop thinking. The Son of God has merely disappeared. Disappeared. So the Christ disappears into his Father and has as his Father as in him. The world has never been at all. Eternity remains a constant state. But eternity remains all there is forever. This is beyond experience we try to hasten. We are trying to hasten experience. God is not in a hurry. You are. God is timeless. Yet forgiveness taught and learned brings with it the experience which bears witness that the time the mind itself determined to abandon all but this is now at hand. You've come to the point in time and space, which is the only point there is in time and space, and that's to realize that there is no time and space, and nothing matters, because matter is just the extension of time and space in the dreamer's mind, which extends light itself. We do not hasten it, and that what you will offer was concealed from him who teaches what forgiveness means. God knows not of forgiveness. That's why it's hidden from he who knows. Hidden as in it never existed, because what can be hidden from God? Only that which isn't true. And what isn't true is the universe and everything in it. And therefore, God cannot forgive you no matter how bad you think you've been and how sorry you are for it, because God knows not of sin and of your forgetfulness, because God knows you only as the perfect Son he created, as he extended himself into the eternal now. All learning was already in his mind. The memory of God in you, your holy essence, your soul, is your true mind, is your Christ mind. And the memory of God, which is everything you've ever could possibly know, which is only one thing, the eternity of God, is already there. And that's what calls you back to yourself. All learning was already in his mind, in your Christ mind, accomplished and complete. He recognized all that time holds. Wink, wink. Doesn't hold anything. And gave it to all minds, that each one might determine from a point where time was ended. Fell asleep, woke up. When it is released to revelation and eternity, when it's released to its natural state of being, the eternal extension of God's love. We have repeated several times before that you but make a journey that is done, that is gone, that never existed. Forgiveness must be here, and therefore oneness must be here. Well, what is forgiveness? Forgiveness is a cleaning rug with turpentine that rubs away all those blotted paint marks that prevent the light from shining through, for oneness must be here. And what do you do with a rag once you've cleaned the window? Push it away. That's what forgiveness is, a rag that cleans a dirty window, revealing the window has always been clear. It appeared to be orange and blue and black and filled with shadows, but it's because you projected ideas onto it which muddied the glass of awareness, which you are. So for oneness must be here. Whatever time the mind is set for revelation, the revealing of what you are, is entirely irrelevant to what must be a constant state, the state that you permanently are in as the extension of God's love, Holy Son, forever as it always was, forever to remain as it is now. Mind can't comprehend forever and now as the same thing, because it's trapped in linear. We merely take part, the part assigned long since and fully recognized as perfectly fulfilled. It's done by him, capital H, W, capital W, who wrote salvation's script in his creator's name. The appearance of this timeline and your body and your stories is just an elaborate story of nothing. By him who wrote salvation's script. Our backward path, our reverse path back inward to the very source from where we came. In his creator's name, and in the name of his creator's Son, you. The script is written. You're awake. Forgive the memory that still haunts you. There is no need to further clarify what no one in the world can understand. Even I sharing this with you can't get my head around it, so you don't try, you just accept this is. When revelation of your oneness comes, you'll know it. It will be known and fully understood, but then there's no more knower, so who knows it? Wow, it was such a moment. And that's the moment I stood up after having read and understood and traveled and figured things out. I just realized, oh, now I really know nothing. Just when I thought I was the smartest cookie in the universe. Now we have work to do. Take a step back. There's no need to clarify what no one in the world can understand. No one. Yet when revelation of your oneness comes, it will be known and fully understood by what? By that which understands everything. Which means what happens to you? Poof, feather, silence. Feather's gone. Now we have work to do. And that moment, so once you fully realize the self, you're only halfway there. Now we have work to do. So if you awoken to self in that full awareness of self and still wonder why thoughts come, because it's not fully done yet. You got to keep forgiving until it just goes quiet. And then we have work to do, which now means you pour yourself, your capital S self, your Christ itself, your holy self, God's self, God's love back into the world. Because how else do others, fractured parts of you, awaken? Because someone guided you there, some book, some text, some teacher, and now it's your turn. Now the baton is passed on. You're in a relay. Now you're passing the baton on. You're passing the torch on, the flame on. Because as each one of us sparks into ignition, sparkies, you pass it on so that the rest of ourselves ignite in spontaneous awareness to the awareness we are. So now we have work to do. With those in time, in the appearance of body-mind, can speak of things beyond and listen to words which explain what is to come is past already. The future is done. It's past, back to the future. No, it's future to the back. It's future to the present. Go into the future to be present. No. Go into the past to be present. No, you're present. It can. What meaning can words convey? It's all confusing to those who count the hours still and rise and go to work and sleep by them and celebrate birthdays and anniversaries and dates. We even celebrate when people died and horrible moments in history, and we have days to celebrate the hell we've made or imagined we've made. That's why we still have 9/11 ceremonies. We can't just forgive and let the past go and realize it was an error in time. It never happened. We have to hang on to our self-righteous concepts. Suffice it then that you have work to do, to play your part. You agreed to it before you came into form, which never really happened anyway. The ending must remain obscure until your part is done. Why can't you see the future? Because there isn't one. It does not matter, because there is no material matter. For your part is still what all the rest depend on. The script is written, play your part, be the light that reminds the world it is light, that reminds everyone in the universe we are light, we are the love of God. And as you take the role assigned to you, which you have to do willingly, salvation comes a little nearer each uncertain heart that does not beat as yet in tune with God. And you can't escape the dream and the rest still suffer. There's a school of thought that loves that. Oh, I can't wait for the rest to, the end of days to come, and we'll all go to heaven because we believe in X, Y, Z, and they're going to suffer because they're evil. You don't wake up in the morning. I've said this to you many times. Imagine this. Wake up in the morning and 3 characters that woke up in your dream now standing next to your bed. The characters dissolve when you awaken. The entire universe dissolves when the Christ awakens to the Christhood, which is the extension of God's unconditional love. Forgiveness is the central theme that runs throughout salvation. You can sit in bhakti and devotion for the rest of your life, and in the silent stillness, the work is done, but you are just going to be constantly tempted by those attack thoughts that are going to disturb your silence. And then you think your meditation isn't working. Why? Because first of all, meditation is not a practice. Meditation is being aware of being aware. And therefore, forgiveness is the one beautiful thing this course offers, which no other non-dual path offers. And so your role, your function, teacher for God, while you appear to be in the world, is practice forgiveness. Not try and understand and transcend and enlighten and whatever. Just keep practicing forgiveness until there's nothing more to forgive, and then practice it some more. Forgiveness is the central theme, holding all its parts in meaningful relationships. The course runs it directed from its outcome is sure. I cannot re-emphasize this enough, except maybe to repeat it one more time. Forgiveness is the central theme that runs throughout salvation, holding all its parts in meaningful relationship. The course it runs directed. It's already scripted, and its outcome is sure. And now we ask for grace, the final gift salvation can bestow. And in this case, grace is patience, perseverance, unconditional acceptance, non-judgment, the acceptance of what is. The experience that grace provides will end in time. For grace foreshadows heaven, yet does not replace the thought of time, but for a little while longer. And that interval suffices because it's a holy instant. And in this holy instant, here is the miracles that are laid. They're laid in this moment forever. They're always in this moment. To be returned by you from holy instants, you receive glimpses into true reality through grace in your experience to all who see the light that lingers in your face and in your present awareness. Because now you are like your brother Jesus, who came before us 2,000 years ago, becoming Christ embodied, that you may be the light which shows the world the light we are. What is the face of Christ but his who went a moment into timelessness and brought a clear reflection of the unity he felt, an instant back to bless the world. This holy instant I give to you, be you in charge, that I may follow you, knowing that and in total certainty, knowing in total certainty, I am. There's nothing more. That's it. Full stop. I am. How could you finally attain to it forever, while a part of you remains outside, unknowing, unawakened, and in need of you as witness to the truth? How can you abide where a part of you is fully awakened to the self you are, sharing itself with Christ as itself, and a part of you still seems to be here? By giving no attention to that which appears to be here, other than attention to it as it serves the light of its awareness to the rest, not trying to understand, not trying to question, not trying to figure out, but what does the future hold? And am I going to die or maybe not? Can I hang on to this body a little longer? It matters not, for it is no matter, and there is no time, and there is no future, and there was no past, and there's only this, appearing as what is in the mind, which very essence is that which is in that which is God. Be grateful to return awareness as you were glad to go an instant, forever, and here now, and accept the gifts that grace provides you. You carry them back to yourself. As you shine, it shines back at you. As you share, it's shared with you. And revelation stands not far behind. Its coming is ensured. All I can share with you, and that is that it's just peaceful. It's not exciting. Awakening isn't exciting. It's the exact opposite of excitement. It's a calming down. And revelation stands not far behind and calms us further. It's coming insured. Why? It's always here. We ask for grace and for the experience that comes from grace, the awareness beyond experience. We welcome the release it offers from the idea of being this idea, and for the experience that comes from grace. We welcome the release it offers everyone. Why? It's not just you, because everyone is in you. So when it offers to you and you become aware of it, of being the awareness you are now a part of all of this, sharing this awareness with all of yourself. We do not ask for the unaskable. We do not look beyond what grace can give. For this we can give in the grace that has been given us, in the shared peace, in the shared awareness, in the shared joy of being. That's what grace is doing. It's bringing us into the being, knowingly that which we are, as the extension of God's eternal, indivisible, complete, perfect love. Our learning goal today does not exceed this prayer. Yet in the world, what could be more than what we ask this day of Him who gives the grace we ask, as it was given Him? We're asking the memory of ourself. We're asking the Holy Self, our Holy Spirit self, the true self we are, to remember itself fully, so that this appearance of body-mind can subside, and that which we are forever in God's grace can awaken to itself. By grace I live. By grace I am released. By grace I give. By grace I will release. Amen.